background, and we'll just turn it over to you. But
Okay.
first of all, where were you born and raised?
Well, so I was a Navy brat. So my family was in Oregon, but I was born in South Carolina, Charleston, in the Naval Hospital. And then we moved back to Oregon. And then my family moved to Texas. I've been in Montana for 20 years now.
Aha, okay. And did you go to college?
No, I did not. I've taken I had a scholarship to the University of Texas at Austin, and I had a family tragedy and wasn't able to start then. I've taken a lot of continuing education courses and things like that over the years, but I kind of hit the ground running um, uh, with my
Uh,
career. I was in telecommunications when it just started blowing up, and have always just learned as I went. I'm a huge reader. I read a tremendous number of books every year. I absolutely love to learn, but I never did make it to officially to college.
and tell us about your occupational background then.
So occupationally, I have, gosh, I started working for the Texas Association of School Boards. I see Amy. Hi.
Good morning.
There she is. You made it. Good for
Yes.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, we just got started with TJ, and we'll come back
Okay.
then in a few minutes.
Sounds
So
good.
go ahead, TJ, tell us more about your occupational background.
Okay, so I started in telecommunications with the Texas Association of School Boards, and then worked, oh gosh, I want to say 7 years for them, I think. I worked for Progressive Insurance. I was a four-state telecom manager. I worked for North Austin Medical Center, which was it's an enormous hospital in Austin. It's been renamed. I don't know what it's called now, as an assistant director. And then went kind of over into the governmental sector with working for Leander Independent School District in Texas, which was the second fastest growing district in the state. Was there for 7 years. And then I was blessed to be a stay at home mom. While I was a stay at home mom, I also, I'm a journalist, have written for many magazines and periodicals, um, including like Simply Local, which was Simply Family at the time for several years. I have always been heavily involved in volunteering. So I was a captain of a mounted search and rescue team in Texas. I was on the Civil Air Patrol as a pilot, um, different things like that. As my kids got older, I did homeschool them, and had them involved in lots of activities and things like that, but always still continue to work part-time. Worked for my church for several years as an outreach mobilizer, kind of trying to put feet to our faith, I guess is the best way to put it. And then started working, which granted nonprofit, but began working for Lat 45 Adventure Ministries, which takes young people away from their phones, out of their comfort zone, and into the mountains for a week at a time to help just develop their character and that sort of thing. And then helped start Love and Sunshine Ministries, which is a Christian maternity home, faith-based maternity home for young women here in Billings. And now I've been with Veterans Navigation Network for several months. So kind of a varied background, but it's always been people first, service first, and taking care of complex problems, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay. Well, go ahead and make your presentation then. We'll try and we'll try and make sure we have plenty of time for questions, but why don't you go ahead and make your own presentation, and then we'll hear Amy, and then we'll go back to questions.
Okay. I actually didn't realize I needed to make a presentation. So I guess I'll just tell you a little bit more about my time on council and things like that. So I was selected to finish Denise Joy's term at the end of January. I was sworn in, I want to say February 1st or 2nd. I'm not sure of the date. And that evening, we actually got the results of the water. Um, oh my goodness, what's the word? I just blanked. The water review. Yeah.
fiasco.
Yeah, yes. So kind of hit the ground running with that. And that continues to be an issue to this day. As I was meeting with the city administrator yesterday, we had quite a long talk about that. Um, and just trying to really, my frustration with the city, I don't, specifically speaking of the water fiasco, that there wasn't one big thing that went wrong. There isn't something we can put our finger on that we're trying to hide or anything and saying, oh, this this is what happened, and we need to issue a big refund or anything like that. But there were a shockingly high number of small things that went wrong, and there continue to be people that are frustrated with what happened. I think it was all compounded by the fact that we had a very hot summer last year, and people did use their water more, especially without that initial check of the first month's water bill that always, goes up. And so there's just a lot of sticker shock that goes in with what we have now, which is a lack of trust in our local government. Because I told Chris this yesterday. I feel like we haven't been transparent. I feel like we've been more concerned about covering when we make a mistake, and frustrated with the numbers of people calling in, that the city's automatic answer has been, oh, you've got a water leak, and not even looking into it. Whereas when I've been contacted by a lot of different constituents about their water bills, and the ones that I took to the city, about half of those, they were able to find that there was a problem, and they were able to issue refunds, and they were very gracious about doing so. So I just feel like if we can take that approach to many more things that we do with the city, where we tend to be we try to turn it into a political thing, a partisanship thing, and it's ridiculous. This is a nonpartisan role for a reason, and I approve of the reason. I appreciate the reason. City government is meant to be about infrastructure and public safety. It's not supposed to be partisan politics. And that's just the approach that I've taken. I vote across the board. I do tend to vote more conservatively, but there's been multiple times, many times, when I've voted in a more progressive fashion. It depends on the issue. And I think that all of us have to vote our conscience, and vote the information that we have. I've got great relationships with everyone on council, because for the most part, everyone wants to seek a collaborative approach, and wants to seek, you know, working together to get things done. And so I've just really appreciated that.
Mhm. All right. Well, thank you very much. So, Amy, let's go and ask you a little bit about your background. First of all, where were you born and raised?
So I was born here in Billings and raised here in Billings. I only left Billings for about 5 years when I went to college, and then lived in Kansas City, but came back here to raise my family, and here I stay.
Uh-huh. And where did you go to college?
I went to St. Mary. It was St. Mary College at the time in Leavenworth. It's the University of St. Mary now. It's a Sisters of Charity college or university now.
Uh-huh. And then tell us a little bit about your occupational background then.
Sure. So after I graduated, like I say, I was in Leavenworth, and so I moved into Kansas City, took a job working with at-risk families. I was a family support employee, and then after moving back to Billings, I spent a little time in New Day Ranch in the group homes. But that's a pretty tough place to work. And after having to do so many restraints and getting punched and all of those things, it was hard. I was a young mom, and it just wasn't for me. So I moved on to religious ed director at Guadalupe Church. I served in that role for 8 years, and it was good because it was part-time and I was raising my kids. I also spent some time at the Institute for Peace Studies up at Rocky, and volunteered on their board first, and then became employed. And so then in 2010, after serving 4 years on the board for Angeles Piazza, the sisters asked me if I'd be interested in a position there. So I accepted, and I've been there ever since. So 3 years ago, Sister Mary retired, so she advocated for me to take on as director, and the board approved. And so here I am, and I love this work. It's always been the heart of what I do, working for others, serving others, and helping them find their pathway in life.
Uh-huh. And you're the executive director now.
Yes.
Uh, and maybe you should tell us a little bit about what that is. Uh,
Hmm.
and then
Sure.
let's and then I'll let you go ahead and talk about anything you want to, anything else you want to tell us.
Okay. So working at Angela's Piazza, we work with women in domestic violence and addictions recovery primarily. So we have education and support groups for survivors of domestic violence. We also offer sexual assault support. I co-facilitate a program called Daughters of Tradition, working with girls age 8 to 13, and that kind of reteaches cultural traditions and values to the girls as they all come from uh, trauma, chaos, and all of that. And so it's a safe space for them to reacquaint themselves with their culture. And while I'm not Native, I am Indigenous, and I do have a healthy respect for our roots. And so that's why I'm co-facilitating with Delora Old Elk. Because the girls need to see and be instructed by people who look like them. That's a very important thing. And so we also offer supervised visits on a limited basis. But being a drop-in center, we never know who we're going to encounter on any given day. And sometimes people come in just need somewhere to sit and have quiet space for a while. Sometimes they just need a listening ear. Not all of them need plans and steps forward. They just need to know that someone sees them. And so that's what we do. And then we also have a little thrift store in our basement. Folks give us donations of women and children's clothing and accessories, linens and household items. And so everything is a quarter. And it's just a really great way for the women to be able to provide for themselves and their family. We used to just give those away, but so many of the women are in survival mode that they tend to take more than they need. So it's just a opportunity for them to give pause for thought for what they're taking and if they can really use it. So we try to teach them lots of different micro lessons as they come in. We also talk about recycling and renewable energy, and we have a giant solar panel in the back, and that offers all the power we need and then some. And so we do the recycling, and we teach them, how to take care of creation as well. So,
So I should make a little bit of a disclosure, and that is that the Friends meeting, the Quaker meeting, meets in your facility every Sunday, and
right.
we rent that, I guess, for the Sunday, and so in a way, uh, Amy is our landlord.
I guess I haven't thought of it that way.
But in any event, we really appreciate the cooperation that you have. So why don't you tell us a
I
little
mean,
bit why you're
Tom,
gonna
Tom,
run?
I just want to ask her, do you also take in human trafficking?
So we're not a shelter. We're a day center, so it's Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. If someone comes in who has been trafficked, we certainly will connect her to the right
Yeah,
resources.
that's what I mean.
Mhm.
You can't connect with them. Okay,
Right, right, yeah.
thanks.
So tell us a little bit about why you're running for a city council.
Well, it's been on my radar for a long time. The first time I was approached to consider it, I was still raising babies, and I just didn't have the time that would be required. Anyone worth their salt who wants to serve on council knows it's going to take a lot of extra time. So raising babies was my first priority at that time. So now that my youngest is now 19, I only have one child at home. I have the time. So there's that. Another reason is that council rarely represents the uh, diversity that is in Billings. And in that, I mean someone of color and also a woman. So Billings is a very diverse community, and we're also at least 50% women in this community. So I think council needs to have a better reflection of that. But given all of my background and service to the community, I bring a perspective that is pretty rare among those who serve in this capacity. I have walked with people on the margins. I myself lived on the margins for a time, as some of you may know. My now ex-husband was undocumented when we got married. And so we spent many years living in the shadows and being afraid, really, at any moment somebody could report him should they feel like it. And eventually somebody did. And we were facing him being deported, breaking up our family. We had two babies at the time. Um, and that was the scariest time of my life because I just didn't want my family to be separated, and I didn't also didn't want to have to raise my family in Mexico. But by the grace of God, he was allowed to stay. He was given his green card, and then towards the end of the 10-year life of that green card, he applied for citizenship, which he was granted. Um, so I know what it's like to live in fear. I know what it's like to live on those margins. And so when I say I bring a perspective to council, that is one very unique perspective. And with the rhetoric and the fear that's being amped up in our country lately, I among few have that empathy to offer. Um, and while people are speaking truth to power. So those are a lot of the reasons I'd like to run and be able to represent people in this community who don't feel represented.
Mhm. Very good. Okay, well, let's open it to questions. Let me start by and by the way, use the little icon at the bottom to tell us that you have a question. Um, Let me start out by a couple questions. First of all, probably the most important thing that any city council does, that our city council does, is appoint administrator. And the question I guess I would ask of both of you is, what do you think of our current administrator, Chris Kukulski? Is he a good person? Are you going to support him, or do we need to look for others? Tell us about that. TJ, I'll guess we'll start with you, and then we'll go back and forth on the starts.
Sure. Yeah, I do think Chris is a good person. I have, I've known him now for what, 10 months, I guess. I started meeting with him in, I don't remember if it was late December or early January, but he was one of the people that I specifically wanted to speak with in regards to, making the decision whether or not to um, ask for the selection. And I think there's some with any employee, there's always room for improvement. I think Chris, from things that have been third party, things that have been expressed, I think sometimes there can be a little rub or friction between his power and the power, for lack of a better word, of council as given by the city charter. But that's something that we work on with him. I told him, actually, I know it was January. I made the point, I believe Amy did too, of meeting with each one of the council members and the mayor during that month to better understand what I was trying to get myself into. And one of the questions that I asked every single council member was, what is your opinion of Chris Kukulski? And what do you think we need to do moving forward? There will always be conflict, and our role, and I can say this as a Christian, my um, um, one of my life verses is that everyone should be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to become angry. And I think that we have to do that. And I don't think a knee-jerk reaction of, oh, we've got this situation and maybe Chris didn't handle it the way we wanted. I don't think the proper response is, well, let's just get rid of him. I don't like that. I'm not reactive as a person, and I think that we have to be more respectful of each other, of Chris, and of the role. So I hope that I answered the question.
Okay, Amy?
Yeah, so as TJ mentioned, yes, I met with all of council, including the mayor and Chris Kukulski, as I was seeking the appointment that was granted to TJ. And getting to know each person individually is critical to being a successful unit as council. And getting to know Chris, also with our work on the Northern Lights Family Justice Center. I find Chris to be very personable. When I had very serious questions about the Justice Center, he took time out of his day to come meet with me and my staff to address those questions and give us insight and directions for follow up. Um, I don't see that he's done anything wrong or malicious as our city administrator. I know some of the council members have, for whatever their reasons are, um, a bad taste in their mouth with him, and I don't know what that's about. My personal experience is that I see him as he works hard. He is a huge advocate for his staff, which any good leader ought to be. And I don't think pushing him out as that seems to be where we're at now, as he's announced that he's looking for employment elsewhere. I think that's
Oh,
incredibly unfortunate.
okay.
I'd like to
Actually, go ahead, TJ.
From my conversations with Chris, I don't think it's that he's feeling pushed out. He definitely has the support of council. Like you mentioned, there are folks that are very frustrated with the way things are being handled. We're frustrated with some of the comments that he's making in the community about having the power. But that's third party, so I can't testify to that. But um, what he's told me, at least, and I'm just quoting directly from him, is that he is wanting to move back home because that was something that he had promised his family all along. That it's not, I mean, he's in the middle of a contract. So he is a man of integrity. He would follow that contract unless he had a reason to not. And he does still have, I mean, if we voted today, absolutely, he would have the support of council. But a personal thing that's related more to his, wanting to bring his family back to where they came from. At least that's what he said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for
I
sharing.
heard the same thing. So that's what I was going to comment on. Okay, well, a second question then I wanted to ask you is some people have said that we have too many council people and we ought to have fewer, and we would be more efficient, more effective if we had fewer. And other people say, no, we have to have a broader scope. What's your thoughts on that? Amy, it's your turn this time to start.
Okay. I think I think that perspective is misguided. I hear the argument that it would make the council meetings so much shorter and whatever, fewer personality clashes and all that. But in my mind, if it weren't where it's at today, people like me would have even less of a chance to get on council to help serve this community. I think with the two representatives per ward is ideal because you can have more bigger opportunity to have more diverse perspectives and experiences to bring to the table. Yes, that can cause for longer meetings, but also members can practice restraint a little bit. Don't have to comment on every single thing. But on the important issues, obviously, we're going to speak up. But I think the number of where it's at is ideal.
And TJ?
I agree with almost all of that. I voted against it when it came up, and I respect Scott very much, the one that brought it up. I had multiple conversations with him before it came up. Um, a lot of what happens in council doesn't happen at the meetings because we have talked with each other and tried to sought understanding before the actual meetings come up, which I think is good in helping shorten those meetings sometimes. But um, I I understand where he's coming from with the length of the meetings, but sometimes that's necessary to have that respectful dialogue that can get a little heated, that can get a little what may appear to be conflict, but I feel like everyone on council right now respects each other and enough to treat each other as adults. And there's going to be pushback and there's going to be discussion and interaction. And did you, challenge? Did you look at it this way and that sort of thing? And I think that's an important part of just being an adult. We have to have conflict resolution skills. We have to have negotiation skills. And I like the way council is able to utilize those skills. And boy, there'd have to be a lot stronger argument made for reducing the numbers to get me to vote for it. I think this is how we represent our city. And the other thing is, those of us who are still in the workforce bring a different perspective. And as Amy alluded to, as a woman, as a single mom in the workforce, I have a very different perspective than a retired man who has an income, who doesn't have to worry, who's not having to watch the budget. And no disrespect to them whatsoever, that they've come to that because of their hard work in their lives, but my perspective is a little bit different. My willingness to spend tax dollars is a little bit different because that's money that I've worked hard for. And so I like our ability to provide that varied perspective with the numbers that we have now.
Okay, let's go to the questions. Carol, you have your hand up.
You kind of alluded to it a little bit, TJ, but I'm kind of curious the times I've been on council when we've had some real gritty discussions. It seemed to me that some tend to not want it so bad that they make a real to do about it. They maybe bring it out of proportion a little bit. And I think I don't know, would you think that maybe the council might want to think about policing themselves, if you would, about how they attitude, how much time they take, and what they actually bring to the table, especially in front of the constituency, because it can really mess up. The constituencies walk away saying, God, how did he get on this city council, that kind of attitude. And we don't need to have that attitude. We need to know that, well, he had opinion, he had some good points, but maybe we need to think about this or something, take away as a positive thing instead of negatives.
TJ?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I have a personal, I guess, dislike of drama and big opinions and big personalities kind of being foisted on a group just because of my own background. I was in an abusive marriage for a long time and I dislike that. However, I also know there's a little bit of live and let live. I can only police myself. You know what I mean? And I make a point of saying to council members in meetings and in one-on-ones, this is how I address things. This is, my being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. That's how I can't control them. I can control me. And it's very important to me to control myself and to be respectful and to present as a person who wants to listen and you have to be teachable. We have a teachable spirit. And that's who I am. That's not who everybody is. And there are some folks who enjoy a little bit more of the contentiousness and the bigger drama and the mic drop moments and things like that. I don't know how to stop that. I mean, there have been conversations offline about that, I can assure you, but at the end of the day, we each present to the world how we have decided we're going to present to the world. And there are some folks who are just less concerned about the getting along part and more concerned about their opinion. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of my perspective of it.
Okay, Amy?
Well, yeah, we can't control what others do, but we can absolutely model behavior and intention to others and hope that that gets picked up. I've actually addressed council this year about that kind of behavior. I during public comment one day, I just got up, just like I'm really disappointed to see this kind of attitude and behavior being displayed, and I said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I don't know if that went over heads or not, but that's what I can do is just kind of say, you know what, stop acting like children. Let's be adults. Let's figure out how to dialogue without being rude and disrespectful, because council is a collaborative effort. And for us to be successful as a council, that is imperative that we figure out how to get along and model and exemplify that respect.
Okay, let's get into a more serious issue in terms of the city. As you well know, the city is having trouble with funding right now. In fact, we actually not only did we have a problem raising enough money, but because of our charter, we can't raise more than a certain number of mills. And and the question is, should we change that? The state actually had the legislature actually had to say we're going to override it so that Billings doesn't have that problem. So the question is, should we change that charter? That charter was that mill levy limit was intentionally put into the charter in order to get enough support for the people from the people of Billings to approve the charter. Should we change it? Let's see, Amy, it's your turn to start.
Okay. Well, as with anything, it's important to review our living documents that guide our work. I can say at Angela's Piazza, when we were established in 1998, and when I joined staff in 2010 and until now, we've reviewed those bylaws a handful of times just to be sure we're first staying on our mission, but also is there room for growth? Is there room for development and opportunity that we're not looking at yet? So I think it's important to review these things. I'm not saying change it today. I'm just saying, I guess I don't know the last time the charter was reviewed and considered for any kind of change. But I've always said if you're not growing, you're dying. If we're not growing in our capacity to evolve and learn and grow emotionally, spiritually, and in capacity, I think that we're missing good opportunities. So I think it's important to review it and consider those changes.
Okay, TJ?
So reviewing the charter is not up to council, it's up to the voters. We're going to have to put to the voters the need to open the charter based on this the property tax issue that you brought up. Because of the mill cap, we're as you said, we are being forced to override, or the state is overriding that. We are assessing at a higher number of mills than we are uh, legally allowed to through our local charter. We rather expect that we will be sued as a city. But we're not given a choice by the state legislature with this. So we are going to have to bring it up because this, it what it actually does, and we've gone over and over and over the new law and comparing it to the charter. It actually locks us in at the 2025 rates with no cost of living adjustments, no inflation adjustments. We're going to be stuck there. The city is going to be stuck there with no floating ability. So we absolutely have to open it. There's some other issues that are being discussed in council across the board of different things that we would like the voters to continue or consider. And so we're hoping that as we have to open the charter for voter approval, that, you know, we like Amy alluded to, we may need to look at other aspects of the charter and how we run our local government and make sure that it is the best effective for 2026 and beyond.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, Ruth has a question.
As you know, there's been a lot of discussion about the state's new mental health center, and one of the proposals is that apparently there's some state land right next to our county jail, and so there's a possibility of putting it right next to the county jail. And I know that there's been some concern from the people of the South Side that we're putting all the prisons and jails and correctional facilities in that neighborhood, but that would put it squarely in the center of the, you know, in the city. So how do you feel about this new, first, how do you feel about the new mental health center? Is it an asset, or is it something that nobody wants in their neighborhood? Or, yeah, I guess that's basically the question.
Okay, let's see, whose turn is it? TJ, is it you?
I think so. Great questions. And I have been heavily involved with this issue, both from when the state first came and thought they were just going to broker a land deal until even through yesterday. We had a think tank group meet and really worked hard for a few hours on addressing some of the actual issues with the mental health facility. To speak to the location by the county jail, it's not large enough. We did go and look at that property, and it's not large enough for what they need. So I think now, instead of looking at a specific tract of land, they're on a wider scale of does Billings want this or Yellowstone County want this? I know Columbus is asking for it, Laurel is asking for it, and so we're kind of trying to work through all that. And then there is certainly a very good portion of people that say not in my backyard, whether that's the South Side or the city or the county. But there's also a very large portion of people saying, if not us, then who? You know, while Billings does not have the workforce to support the 450 to 500 employees that something like this would bring, we need it. And so that's one of the issues that we were working on yesterday. How do we do workforce development and an educational path that will fill all these roles? And we talked about specific roles, you know, aides and physician's assistants and physicians, psychiatrists, nurses, all of the people that would actually be filled. We had folks there from Billings Clinic, Riverstone, St. Vincent, New Day, that all of the different providers, and really it was really exciting. I wish you guys could have been there. It was really neat to see all the different perspectives and ideas coming in, trying to work together and addressing funding issues and best practices and things like that. So I think there is growing support for it as we start working through the very real issues that such a facility would bring to the community. There's a lot of benefits to it. There are some drawbacks, but the fact of the matter at the end of the day, and I made this note yesterday, whether it's in Billings, it's in, you know, Stillwater County, or it's Big Timber, Billings is still going to have to provide employees. We're still going to have to provide wraparound services. We are still the medical provider, mental health and substance abuse provider for the entire state. And no matter where this specific facility is listed, we're going to be involved. So we might as well take the bull by the horns and be involved well from the beginning and do a good job of rolling this out.
Okay, Amy?
Well, there's no question for the need for this facility, and I'm absolutely willing to consider it being in Billings, or not. I mean, whatever. We can talk about that and look at the details and the staffing needs. My concern is no matter where it's going to be constructed, um, there's a lot of professional employees that would potentially relocate to the area to be employed there. And so, where are they going to live? Do we have the housing capacity to support that here in Billings or Laurel or Columbus or wherever? That's my biggest concern. Um, as far as it being located here in Billings, I think I don't have any problem with that. Um, and like I say, it's a need that needs to be met, and I'm willing to wholeheartedly sit at the table and hammer out those details.
Okay, well, similar to that, then what is your view or your uh, concept of what Billings needs to do? Should we be growing more? Should we try and encourage more businesses to come to Billings? Or are we good enough the way we are and we don't need to put more emphasis on growth? What is your thoughts? Amy, I guess it's your turn to start first.
Yeah, well, I again, if you're not growing, you're dying, and that's in capacity, that's in emotion, that's in spirit. Um, yeah, I think we're a very sprawling community, and we have a lot of opportunity to build from the inside out. There are a lot of neglected, abandoned properties, such that we could look at developing those. Um, And my vision would be pockets of tiny homes around the community, maybe 6 or 8 tiny homes in a pocket, and that's a start, And those kinds of assets would mostly appeal to seniors or people living alone or just a very small family. But it's a start and it's an option, and they're extremely resourceful. If we looked at infill rather than sprawl, the utilities are there, the sewers are there, so it's not so expensive to develop. Um, and so, thinking of if we were to have this mental health facility here, I don't know what uh, kind of doctors there would be and what kind of homes that they envision for themselves, but it would at least help with our current population as a start. I am a huge fan of mixed zoning. I think it would be a wonderful way to develop communities. And I heard one of the city council candidates say, "Well, I don't think anything needs to change. I like it the way it is." I can appreciate that sentiment because change is hard, but change is necessary. The only thing constant is change. And so once we can embrace that, we can work with it and we can direct it and we can, use it to enhance this community in very many different ways.
Okay, TJ?
Um, yeah, I agree. Growth is critical, and growth does not have to always be out. We as council, one of our major roles is infrastructure, and so trying to make things work. There are some issues with infill, with parking. Parking is a huge issue, and then the additional strain on um, sewage and water systems that have had deferred maintenance for so long that they're starting to be problems with that. There's starting to be major leaks, which circles back around to our water issue. That's one of the issues that the city has found when all of a sudden a property is getting thousands and thousands of dollars or of gallons more water than they normally have. Oh, and it's actually a water line break at their home. So just kind of being cognizant of the impact that high intensity infill can cause, but and then, I mean, TIF TIF districts work because we revitalize and we bring in new business, and we whether that's, I mean, obviously with TIF districts, it's an infill thing, but I don't think the question was specifically that, unless I misheard. But um, that is growth. It is growth to, instead of letting something stay dormant, it is growth to bring in a new organization. And we have to be, I think we need to be aggressive with that. We need to, I know the chamber has been working really hard on doing that, and they've done some fantastic work on bringing new businesses in and increasing TIF dollars to be able to really work on the blight issues and revitalization, which is really exciting to see as a person who loves our town, and to see that the healthy growth inside, and then outside. Gosh, we have a lot of folks moving to this area. We need both. We need infill, and we also need what can negatively be referred to as sprawl, but also can be looked at as, I mean, when a child grows, they grow up and out too, right? And I think that that's part of it. There's so many folks moving in. We need these high density apartments, and we need the townhomes and the duplexes, and then the I'm trying to think of the right word, nicer homes, the more expensive, affluent homes for folks that can afford that. Absolutely. That's the money that they've earned, and they should be able to have a nicer house if that's what they want for their families. And so, yeah, to kind of sum that all up, I think healthy growth has to include both outgrowth and infill, and being very creative outside of the box with that.
Okay. Jock has a question.
Yes. Montana and Billings are uh, significant because we have such a high ratio of older citizens. And you just looking at the group that's here now, we're older. I've recently moved into a senior facility. Uh, what what do you think this does for the city of Billings, and how might the city of Billings address any issues that uh, come as a result of serving an elder population?
Okay, TJ, I think it's your turn this time.
Okay. That's, that is a fantastic question. I guess what we would need to do, I guess what I would think would be an appropriate thing as a council member to do would be to start asking questions. I want to be quick to listen and slow to speak. I don't have an informed opinion on that because I have not had that question posed to me before. What do more senior folks want and need from their city? Is there more or less emphasis on parks and trails? Is there more or less emphasis on walkable streets with local businesses, groceries and restaurants and things that we all use. So my response is I want to listen. I want to hear what those needs are, and then move forward with that.
Amy?
Yeah, so I know that in our ward here, Ward 3, over on Avenue D and 8, there's a nice apartment facility for seniors. And I note how the bus route is intentionally designed to stop right there and allow the residents to use that service without any overbearing need to walk to a bus stop. I appreciate those little efforts like that. Also, the Allies on Aging is over here in our ward as well, on 15th and D, and I know their services are extraordinary and vital to our community. I will continue to listen to what the needs and desires are. I also don't have an informed perspective on that. I can say my folks live in this ward and they're in their 70s, and they have their limitations. um and so watching as my parents are aging, I'm learning as we go what their needs are. And I will support and listen to those who are in that faction, and work to support you in the best way I could.
The other side of that question is, does Billings need to focus on anything to uh, renew our population, as a lot of people are no longer working, are uh, no longer contributing in the ways that they did when they were working? What should the city be focusing on to uh, bring energy, appropriate energy into the city?
Okay, Amy, I think it's your turn.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredibly crucial and vital that we continue to invest and maintain our green spaces and our trails. Like, if we want to attract people to this community to want to live here and raise their kids here, we have to make it a family-centric environment. I grew up in Pioneer Park. My kids grew up in Spring Creek Park playing with the ducks. And if it weren't for those green spaces, my life would be very, very different, and probably not for the better. So I think it's critical and vital that we continue to invest. And as in my job as director of Evangelist Piazza, it's vital that I know how to collaborate sometimes with other nonprofits or other groups, civic groups, in order to provide the best outcome. And so what council I think is capable of doing more of is creating those collaborative efforts to meet the needs of our communities. Like, we can work further with civic groups, nonprofits, church communities, PTAs. How can we adopt this area of our community and keep it vibrant and inviting? So I think there's a lot more that we can do. It's not to say that what's being done isn't already valuable, but to keep growing our city and attracting new talent, and thereby nurturing young ones into adults who will invest in this community. I think that's incredibly vital.
PJ?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of a lot of things actually. I agree that parks are very important. Also, artwork. I've talked to different constituents who are very big proponents of our urban artwork, and council has been able to work with groups on how we bring art beautification efforts, even specifically downtown, that can be just a huge impact on people's moods and attitudes and things like that. I think education is a huge piece. I'm delighted that we now have Rocky Vista University and the vet university that's opening up. I work with them, even with Veterans Navigation Network. And we are working on job pathways and career education pathways, which are another issue. And that's something that we were talking about yesterday with the mental health facility. And how do we develop these people in-house? How do we recognize where they are, what pockets they may be? And we've got a deficit of these educated folks that are specific careers, healthcare, mental health, things like that, substance abuse. We have a lot of empty positions, FTEs, in this town. Where are they? Are they in another location? Are they not going into those career fields anymore? There's research that we need to do, and we need to do it quickly, so that we can pivot on this. We can have job career paths into education. Working with school district 2, I've been able to work with Dr. Garcia quite a bit on some different issues. I think he's fabulous. He's got fantastic ideas and energy for the school district. and he's very willing to be collaborative and to reach out into the community and say, hey, how can I help meet this need with my students in 5 years? How can I poise my students, my school district, to be able to meet the needs of the community so that we don't have this brain drain that happens. And I think it's pretty common in the West anyway, the brain drain issue, but we have to do better, and we have to be more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, aggressive in our recruiting efforts and our retention efforts, and making Billings a place that they, one, feel safe to raise a family in, and then two, that feel like their less critical needs are being met, but still important needs, that the green spaces, the artwork, the parks and trails, and all of those sorts of things. And I say that as a person, I am a huge outdoors person. I would rather be outdoors than indoors anytime. I raise my kids outdoors. I'm in the mountains every single weekend if I can, if the weather possibly allows it and my schedule allows it. I think being able to be outdoors is a big piece of our own mental health, and I struggle with that financial restriction that we have with public safety, and parks being in the same general fund that public safety is, because if I can't take my kids to the park now, they're in the military, they're not going to the parks anymore. But when my kids were growing up, guys, we spent so many hours, so many days in the parks, and if I'd had to worry every single time that there was going to be um, dangerous situations at the park, with gang activity and drugs selling, and I mean, trafficking has always been a concern, but needles in the park, things like that. It's not safe to go to the park. I could have the most beautiful park in the world if I can't get my family there because it's not safe. So public safety has to come first, but then parks comes right in after it. And I was just talking with Chris and Kevin yesterday about maybe we need to look at putting parks in its own budget so that they are more standalone and they're not going to get um, drawn down every single time we have a public safety need. Maybe it will help us be more aggressive with funding public safety if we know that it's not going to eviscerate our park system. And I've worked with TrailNet a little bit. I mean, Jim Nichols is fantastic resource, and something has to be done there. And we got to get to work. We just really do.
Okay, Lee Nixon, you have your hand up.
How do you plan to communicate with the people of your ward?
Um, oh,
DJ, I guess it's your turn.
yeah, sorry, I jumped the gun there. So what I do actively right now as being on council, I've got a Facebook page that folks contact me through. I attend every task force meeting. I'm super excited. One of the things I was able to help facilitate was a couple of task forces that had died, actually reactivating them and working with um, Sergeant Stovall with the Billings Police Department to help them become more of the neighborhood watch program. So putting actions behind our task forces. I've been involved with the South Side Task Force since January, I guess, and people come up to me, they call me, they email me, they send me messages, and hey, can you look at this for me? And I've got this question, I've got this problem, and that's what I do, not from a podium perspective, but from an individual. Call me on this phone and we'll talk about it. And I will do everything in my limited power to help fix the problem. And then, being out in the neighborhoods and talking with people and saying, hey, what are your concerns? What do you think about this? And sometimes my hair gets blown back, and I heard a lot more than I wanted to hear about the water bill situation. But everything comes down to relationship and being willing to be humble, be teachable, like we talked about before, and just listen to people. And sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes It's just like with my kids. I told you they're in the military, but they're still teenagers. They don't want me to necessarily even fix things for them, but by gosh, they want me to listen and they want me to be their person that they can come to. And I think we have to do that in any role that we're in life, but especially an elected position. I very much take the perspective of what your thoughts are becomes my issue to bring forward. And I can take all of the different thoughts and the different perspectives and try to pray for wisdom and try to bring that forth into council with um, seeking collaboration and just trying to get folks heard and responded to.
Amy?
Yeah, so I also have a Facebook page for my campaign, and I've fielded quite a number of questions and concerns through that. My email is open, my phone is open, and I address those in a timely manner. I want to be able to represent Ward 3 to the best of my ability. So, um, I intend to be very responsive and engaging as the issues come forward.
Okay, before we quit though, I want to ask you one more question, and that is, would you and do you support a non-discrimination ordinance? Let's see, Amy, it's your turn to start.
Yeah. Well, at the front, yes, absolutely, I would. Having walked on the margins myself, but also walking with others on those margins, I am 100% aware of what it's like to not be recognized or seen or even heard. Um, and if an NDO will give that space to our marginalized communities to feel more welcome in their community, then absolutely, yes, we need to have that.
PJ?
I actually would probably not. And the reason is because kind of like we talked about earlier, you can't legislate good behavior. It only causes more conflict and more friction. I agree that I've been marginalized myself, absolutely, as a woman and a single mom at that. And um, we have to think outside of legislation to fix those problems, and it has to be again, like I said before, everything is about relationship, right? I have to open my eyes if I'm being discriminatory or feeling discriminated against, and I have to learn to advocate for myself and to help others advocate. And I just think we need to be better people. But you can't force that. You have to model it, like Amy said earlier, and so yeah, that's kind of my perspective.
Okay, well, it's we're over time, so we really appreciate both of you coming this morning, and I think it's been a really in very interesting uh, hour. We've done I think we've gone through a lot of things. Thank you so much for both of you.
Thank
And
you.
Amy, nice to meet you at the event the other night down at the pub.
Yes, good. It was good to see you as well, Steve.
Okay,
Oh,
take care, guys. Thank you.
all
Take
right, see y'all next time.
All
Thanks.
right, adios.